Have you ever made a decision at the end of the day that you regretted in the morning? Or you finally just conceded because you were just tired of the argument, you just wanted to be over? Today, I'm going to talk about how mental fatigue can be a silent deal breaker. Stay where you are. Welcome to How to Get What You Want. This podcast is for driven women ready to claim their goals and navigate their careers with clarity and confidence. Join me as we explore real stories, tools, and strategies to help you steer your career exactly where you want to go. Let's get started on helping you get what you want. Hey, friend, welcome. I'm so happy that you made the choice to be here today. And even if you're tired, I hope you'll continue to listen because that's what we're here to talk about today, mental fatigue. And I know that you have felt it yourself. I feel it quite often. I've actually gotten pretty good at when I feel mentally fatigued to just go take a 15-minute nap. And I feel so much better because I've learned that it impedes my ability to make decisions. It doesn't allow me to listen. There's a lot of things that it does to me. So I want to talk about that because it can be a deal breaker. It can impede the way you make decisions, and it's important to be aware of it. We think that our decisions are logical, and so no matter where we are from our mental capacity, that we'll make the same choice, but that's not true. It impairs our ability to really make good decisions, and fatigue makes us want to just make the decision and move on. So that is not always the best decision. So we avoid challenges and we avoid opportunities because we're just tired. We're just tired. You know the problem here, right? Because we've all faced it. We all face it on a regular basis. There's so much to do. So decision fatigue, when you have too many choices, I want to break this down a little bit. When you have too many choices, what happens is your cognitive ability slows down. You have too much to do, so you don't know what to focus on. And especially at the end of the day, it makes us not think as well. We don't think as strategically. Leaders and executives almost always make more conservative decisions at the end of the day because they're frankly just tired and they just want to make a decision. So a conservative decision in their mind is better than a bad decision because they might be able to make a change in the future. And what happens is when you are cognitively overloaded, you make snap judgments. You're overwhelmed. You go to the easiest option and you bypass analysis. You bypass asking others for input because you just want to get it off your plate. You just want to make a decision. So when you're juggling a lot going on, or you find yourself wanting to make a quick decision, think about how tired you might be. I'm not going to say this right. Zegnick effect, and it's unfinished tasks distract and drain. And what the effect says is our brains fixate on uncompleted tasks, on incompleted tasks, which hampers our ability to think clearly in the moment. Gosh, I see this all the time when I'm working with clients and I have something that's on my to-do list and my mind just has a hard time focusing on the here and now. And that's because of this effect. Our brains want to close the loop. So when we feel tired, we can't focus. That's what happens to our brains are focused on so many things. So how can you make sure that you're focused on the right thing that's important to you? The common myths that we fall into is that we can push through fatigue with willpower. We'll just get through. And as long as I just have that last little bit, I'll move through. But the reality is, experience and determination can't override good decision making, especially when we're tired. Only rest can optimize your decision making capabilities. Ooh, that's a hard thing to think about, but start to pay attention when you are more tired during the day. It might not be obvious to you. It doesn't mean you might just be cloudy. So identify that. The second myth is sleep is a luxury. I can function without a lot of sleep. Now, there's been a lot of talk about this in recent years, and there's been a lot of studies, if you've paid attention, that 7 to 8 hours of sleep and even 9 hours of sleep is important for executive functioning. and problem solving. So it's really important that you get a good night's sleep. And so when you don't pay attention to that, what happens to you? The third myth is that fatigue only affects us physically, not mentally. It's just not true. We become more impulsive. We want immediate rewards, and we don't think about the long-term benefits of staying in it because we're just want to be done. And then the fourth myth is that fatigue is an excuse for poor leadership. Oh, that one just makes me cringe. How could anybody think that it's okay? You know what? I'm tired. I'm not going to have our one-on-one, or I'm not going to think through how can I show up better for the one-on-one because I'm tired. I feel like there's a culture of we're just so how are you? Oh, I'm just so busy. I'm just so tired. It's acceptable to be that way, and that's not that's not okay. So when you are fatigued, you're tired, you're not showing up as the best leader that you can be. You ignore when people don't do what they're supposed to do because you just don't want to deal with it. So great negotiators think about fatigue. They think about when they're at their best, and they don't believe the myths because they know that when they're in a complex negotiation that they need to be smart and they need to stay in it. So they recognize when they need more sleep or when they need to recover so that they can be at their best. I'll share a few stories when we come back. Hey, Susie here. Thought I'd pop in. I wanted to let you know I've been an executive coach for over a decade. I work with executives and they call me their silent partner because I help them increase their confidence when they're facing really difficult decisions. If you'd like to see if we're a good fit, head over to susietalmanchuck.com and fill out an application. I'd love to hear from you. Doesn't take me long to think of some examples of when being tired or fatigued got in the way of a big deal. One time we were doing a deal with a big media company, and it was an enormous contract over 7 years. It was engineering and very intense from an operations perspective. Those big contracts take months to do. And when you get to the end, you are so tired of rehashing the same things, of going through the details because you're going through legal stuff and you have to be so detailed. And by the end, we were just so excited to be closer than we ever had been in the last few months to get this deal done. And I'll remember on that last day, we were toward the end and we had traveled into New York. I hadn't gotten a lot of sleep. I had to decide some of the business operational aspects because I knew kind of the day to day better than anybody at the table. And so one of the things they asked us for at the very end, and at first glance didn't seem like a big deal to everybody else. I kind of knew it was, but they wanted us to put in an SLA, a service level agreement, that every single day we would verify by not only signing off on a piece of paper in the control room, but we would also make a phone call and record that we had all of these different pieces in place. And I was like so tired of just I didn't want to go through the explaining how tedious that would be for us, helping everybody at the table understand that this was not a big ask. And frankly, I was just so tired and exhausted. I didn't really see, hindsight is 2020, I really didn't see how big of a deal this would be. Again, probably because I wasn't gonna have to do it. I would have to give it to my colleague to do, have his team do, but I was just tired. I was done. I couldn't think clearly. I didn't wanna ask anybody else for advice. I didn't wanna make a call. I just wanted the deal to be done because it had been going on and on and on. Well, the impact of that was pretty significant. It was really a pain, and what they also built in is that every single time that we didn't do the steps that they had laid out, that we had in no other contract, that would be they would get a rebate on their monthly bill. So, it was such a big deal because then the optics to finance, they were involved, everybody was involved. It was such a bad decision in the moment, and it was based on just being tired and fatigue and not making a good decision around it. and just wanting to be done. That was the priority over something that I needed to understand to make a good sound decision around. I didn't have the mental capacity to make a good choice, and I didn't want to introduce any more energy to the factor. I just wanted to go home. So that happened to me more than once. That was just the most painful example of when feeling fatigued did not allow me to make the right choice. And especially when it impacts more than you, that's when you really have to zoom out to say, oh man, I need to think about what is going to happen here beyond myself. I also want to tell you about a client recently who just did the opposite. She was going to go in and she was getting promoted. She didn't like the offer that she had gotten, and she asked for space to think about it. She knew that the new role she was going to take on, well, the department was in disarray. And the company, the business knew that she was the one that could really turn it around. And she knew that. So she had a lot of leverage, but she gave herself time. She got coaching, she got different perspectives, and she went in and she asked for 10 times more than what they were going to offer her. 10 times more. And that was going to be about a fourth of her salary. It was not insignificant. She got it. She got it. They said yes. And the reason is because she was so confident. She was thoughtful. She prepared. And part of her preparation was she knew that she needed to be well rested because she understood that that bred confidence in her. That when she is at her worst is when she feels fatigued, when she's tired. And when she's at her best is when she feels energetic. That's when she's courageous. She also knew that at the beginning of the day was the best time to do it because over the day time, she gets naturally tired. So she knew she had to do that at the beginning of the day. So I really want to heighten your awareness around when are you feeling tired and what can you do about it? And I'll give you 3 tips, and I want you to be thinking about what is your mental capacity at different times in your day and what's coming up for you that's high stakes that you can consider. How do you need to show up for that? So the first tip is to anchor to protect against decision fatigue. So anchoring is this idea of being really clear about what's important to you and to throwing it out so that you anchor the idea or the range so that people, get really close to what you want. In this in this tip, I want you to think about anchoring for yourself. So when you know that something's coming up for you, I want you to decide exactly what the outcome is. What is the most important piece of it and anchor that for yourself. And don't allow yourself in that moment to veer off from that. Anchor that as the thing that you're going to walk away and just say, no deal if you don't get. Because when you are tired, and that can happen, you will concede quickly. So every time you go into something that's really important to you, think about anchoring for yourself the thing that's most important to you. And that is something that you're not going to negotiate away from. The second tip is to use strategic silence when you feel yourself tired. How can you give yourself a little bit of time and energy? Slow yourself down. When you feel drained, default to silence. Don't rush to an answer. And it might look like, somebody comes to you and you're not sure, you're thinking, oh, it feels like a big decision in the moment. Ask for more time. Say, hey, listen, I want to make sure that I'm giving this the most consideration that it warrants. So let's pick this conversation up tomorrow. It's okay to ask for more time, especially when you've identified that you might not be in the right state of mind to make that decision in that moment. Practice silence, slow it down, and be able to say to yourself, oh man, I am not feeling very clear right now. I do feel tired. Even though it might feel like the right decision, I'm going to give myself time and wait. You know what? This also works for emails. Oh, I can't tell you how many times I have written an email late at night and pressed send. And I thought, gosh, what if I would have just waited until the morning? So that's a best practice for me is strategic silence in a non-real time communication about a decision is I will write up everything at night and I will wait till the morning and read it and decide if I want to press send. And so often, I will make some tweaks or adjustments that I'm so happy that I had a second pair of eyes on, a second pair of my own eyes on, and just giving myself that space, that strategic silence allowed me to have more clarity and confidence that I was making the right choice. So that I didn't wake up thinking, ugh, why had I made that decision without giving myself that grace? We will give that to other people. Why don't we give it to ourselves? You would be very open to somebody else if they asked for time. And then the third tip is to really think about high stakes situations, conversations, scenarios for you, and make sure that you time them for when you're at your best. So when you have a key decision or a high stakes situation, it could be a difficult conversation you need to have with somebody. Time it at the beginning of the day or in that time period that you've identified where you have the most cognitive capability. Where do you have the most energy? Sometimes when we're emotional about something, it's easier for us to handle it. When we're not in a great emotional state, that is the wrong time to do it. When something's really important, where that outcome is really important, where you have to be clear to the other person, you're making a big ask, when you need to be really on top of it with your answers or adjusting, make sure that you plan those when you have the most cognitive rope so that you can be at your best. Schedule it at that time. So think about that time. Get really comfortable with knowing your ups and downs through the day and when you work at your best, and pay attention when you're getting cloudy because you're getting tired. Maybe it's you identify when you go and you warm up that coffee or you go and get some caffeine. That might be a trigger to say, this is not a good decision making time for me. So those 3 are anchoring exactly what you want in your future conversation so that you don't walk away and you make a commitment to yourself that that's the thing that you're gonna get. The second is to use strategic silence when you know that you're impeded by feeling fatigued, whether that's in real time or in an email, applying some space and sending it later. And then the third is to really time those high stakes moments, those conversations, those scenarios that are really important to you. Plan them for the time of day that's going to give you the best outcome because it's at the time where your brain is at its best. I want you to think about this. Tired decisions are bad decisions. If you believe that, if you allow yourself to understand that, then you won't allow yourself to make decisions in those times where you're tired, you're exhausted, when you feel like that answer is just the easiest one to get to. Really good negotiators plan and practice their arguments so that they can protect their energy in the moment and they can be really present at that time. So, adopting a negotiator mindset means preparing before you go in, even a few minutes before to go, okay, I'm really tired right now. I need to be really careful what I decide, what answers I give. And I will give myself permission to not say yes in this moment. Good negotiators prepare so that they have the energy, the stamina to continue going, and they anticipate all the decisions that they need to make along the way. So I want you to be an observer of your day. Identify when you are at your best and be very tactical about what you put in those places. Make sure that you're planning for the right things so that you're making sound decisions. And when you see yourself getting to the end of the day or you hadn't slept well, slow yourself down. Give yourself the permission not to make decisions in those moments because, again, tired decisions are bad decisions. So allow yourself to live by that. So my call to action for you is to really notice when you feel mentally drained and how it affects your ability and your choices. When you feel drained, do you just want to make that decision right then and there? Do you face a high stakes decision and you don't want to ask somebody else, even though you know it might be helpful to get a different perspective? Pay attention to those moments when you're feeling tired. What's happening to you? What are your normal things that you do to get through it so you can just get it off of your desk? So you can get it off of your to-do list so you can just move on. Make those decisions at the best time for you. I give you permission to find that for you and really exercise that muscle in identifying when you need to give yourself that space so that you can turn those bad decisions into good decisions that you can live with long term. If you loved what we're talking about here, go to negotiationlove.com. That's where you can sign up for my newsletter. I'd love to see you there. When you get in my world, we're just learning how you can make the shift to be better professionals, better colleagues, and just better humans when you adopt a negotiator mindset. Because negotiation is more than a skill, it truly is a mindset. So glad you're here. Let me know what's on your mind. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time.